Redditors, what is the most screwed up thing you have ever done? And for the viewers, there is a topic warning of death and all that usual stuff, so watch with caution. My grandmother moved in with us while I was a teenager and started to go senile. Our relationship quickly soured. Living with her was different from sending her letters and making phone calls. It wasn't her fault. You change when you start to lose your mind, but honest to goodness, I couldn't stand her. Everything was my fault. Every little thing she misplaced, I stole. I must have stolen it. She couldn't accept that she just couldn't remember where she was putting things. The worst time, she had a meltdown over photos she'd misplaced, and had my parents search my room while I shouted I never touched them. I was a teenager. Why would I want her photos of the garden? I could just go outside if I wanted to see it, for fuck's sake. One night, I woke up because she was shouting for me in that nasally shrill tone she always had, that I'd grown to hate because of her constant theft accusations. Just my name over and over. She was in the bathroom across the hall from my room. I didn't know what time it was. I figured it was early because she was always got up at like 5 a.m. I figured she was shouting for me because she misplaced something again, and was happily accusing me of going into her private bathroom that I never went near and taking it. So I thought some very angry choice words for her, and I pretended I didn't hear her. She cawed for me for 30 or so minutes until it finally woke up my mom. I figured then my mom could deal with you, and now I can sleep. Well, it turns out her kidneys had shut down acutely. She was vomiting and excreting blood that whole time, yelling for me. Not to tell me I was a little thief again, but because she actually needed help. She was 85. That 30 minutes probably didn't make a difference, but she died a few days later, and while I know it wasn't my fault, her extended suffering was. I'm sorry, Grandma. OP, here are a few words of advice. Remember that she's not the one mad at you. The disease is. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. On to the next story. I'm a recovered heroin addict, 9 years sober, and I have a lot of stories of how much of a cruddy person I used to be. I really can't gauge what my worst moment would be, but I can post a story or two, definitely. One day I was flat broke and on my last bag of dope. My neighborhood pharmacist just recently was arrested for a DUI. Brainstorming, I came up with an idea to try and get some pills at the ER. I still had medical insurance at the moment, so I thought this was my best option. My buddy came by and we were hanging outside smoking a cigarette, trying to figure out ways to get hurt, just enough to get some pills, but not enough to actually have permanent repercussions. There was this big-ass cinder block beside my garage, and I decided to drop it on my foot in hopes of just breaking a toe at most. I stood outside on the concrete patio for about 5 minutes with a cinder block, hoping to hype myself up enough to drop it on my foot. I couldn't do it. I psyched myself out too much. I told my friend that he would have to do it for me, and he said okay. He held it about waist high and dropped it on my foot. I knew it wasn't enough damage, so I told him he needed to put it higher and drop it again, to which he did. So going to the hospital, we tell them that I was carrying boxes downstairs to the basement and dropped them when I slipped on the bottom step. So I go back, get x-rays, and I'm in the waiting room. The doctor comes in and tells me that I've torn numerous ligaments in my foot and probably would hurt less if I just broke my foot. Hearing this, I was excited, thinking I scored. I didn't care about the pain at the moment, just happy that I potentially scored. They release me and hand me a script. They wrote me a script for 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, and I experienced defeat. I was a night manager at a fast food establishment during college. There was a bitter prank rivalry between our establishment and the subway next to us. After months of prank escalation, I craved a rotting hamburger in the handle of the Subway manager's trunk lid, so went knuckle deep in rotting burger when he was home. That was the end of the prank war, and I've never forgiven myself for crossing the red line. If you're enjoying the stories I have for you, remember to like the video, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment with your stories down below, or your thoughts on the stories. Now back to the stories we go. I'm gonna rat my little sister out. During our parents' divorce and custody battle, we were forced to sit in on family counseling sessions. I was 12 and she was 8. We thought my mom was acting funny and might have been banging the counselor on the side for her own personal testimonial interests. Still not confirmed. So we were angry because we loved our mom and our dad. It seemed like the counselor favored our mom over our dad, and it got rough sometimes, watching him become outed by the only two adult forces who didn't love him in this world. Anyway, my little sister and I were left alone in his office, and she decided she was gonna take a crud, like a little dump, in his little trash can to assert dominance. It was indeed asserted. We never went back. They say that in every generation there's a hero. This was an embarrassing one that I hope no one ever finds out. One night, a few years ago, my boyfriend and his family got Chinese food from our favorite little place. For some reason this night, it doesn't sit well with me. An hour after eating, I get that intensely sick feeling. Like you have to poop so bad you want to throw up. Whatever, I go upstairs and destroy the bathroom. It's important to note that there's 2 bathrooms upstairs and none downstairs, which is like a little apartment where my boyfriend and I stay. After I'm sure my bowels are empty, I go back down to lay in bed. I thought I could nap it off. About 30 seconds after laying down, I get the urge to go again. I run upstairs, and to my horror, both bathrooms are occupied. His sister is refusing to get out of the shower even though it's an emergency, and his dad is blowing up the other toilet, presumably suffering a fate similar to mine. I begrudgingly go sit in my bed and contemplate my options as the bubbling in my gut grows worse. I bust down the bathroom door and traumatize the sister? Nah. Make a 30-minute drive home? No, it was urgent. I even thought about crudding in my pants against my will and dealing with the embarrassment. God, I don't want to subject my future in-laws to that. I begrudgingly realize my only option is to go outside like nature intended. Their yard is very open, and it was a super bright moonlit night, so there was no place to do it without feeling super exposed, except for under the trampoline. My thought process was, no one's used the trampoline for years, and it's out of sight walking range, so no one could accidentally step in it. Great, I do my business, get soaked in the process as it was slightly raining, and the trampoline was pouring water on me. I clean up with napkins and wet wipes and come inside. Immediately throw up in the trash can from the shock, embarrassment, and anxiety and sickness. Clean that up and immediately go to bed. Everything was fine for a few days until my boyfriend's dad lighthearted tells me how he was late for work that morning. The dog had rolled in some crap and had to get a bath. I felt like throwing up all over again, but thankfully everyone just suspected it was some type of animal poop. Picking up a dude's head that fell off his rotting corpse when I worked at a mortuary transport company is definitely up there. Also, picking up a 5-year-old kid who had a bookcase fall on him, feeling all the broken bones moving in his tiny body, fricked me up good. If we're talking behavior, I definitely attempted to ruin friends' relationships in my teenage years, 'cause I was bitter, had a lonely asshole. Seeing them happy only made me feel worse, so I wanted to drag them down to my level. Luckily, their relationships were stronger than my BS in most cases. I witnessed a woman pretty much break over the headless body of her son. I used to work for a mortuary live service. I mostly picked up from retirement homes and from people's houses, where they had a hospice nurse watching over them. but would occasionally get calls from the local coroner's office. One night, I was sent out to a call not far from where I lived. The place was surrounded by cops. They lead me and my partner to the bathroom, where a guy had blown his head off with a shotgun in the shower. It was a mess, as you can probably imagine, but by this point, it wasn't super out of the ordinary for me. I've picked up self-unalivings before, as well as overdoses, decomps, kids, so I was pretty numb to it. We got the guy into a bag and loaded him up on the gurney, and we were out the door at the worst possible time. The dude's mother was outside now, having been called by someone, I guess. She started hysterically screaming, which immediately put me on edge. I had dealt with crying and mourning over loved ones every day. Even when I had to pick up the kid, his parents were already ushered into another room. But blood-curdling screams right in front of me? This was a first. A cop tried to grab her, but she managed to wriggle away from him, running up to the gurney and pretty much collapsing onto it, sobbing uncontrollably and babbling nonsense. It was the most raw and unfiltered emotion I had ever seen. She was clutching onto the gurney and rocking back and forth, to the point I had to grab the cart before the whole thing toppled over onto the front lawn. I stood there for around 5 minutes with a front row seat to unrivaled agony, with no way to really hide from it, before a cop had stepped in and tried to pull her away, saying that we had to take him. She eventually relented, and we got the body loaded into the car, and from there it was business as usual. My hometown is pretty much middle class to poor. There's a bunch of rich people that live in the woods, and one of them had a kid that went to our high school and bullied the heck out of the kids that weren't as wealthy. That shithead grew up and bought a Camaro last summer and removed the muffler so it'd be the loudest freaking thing in the town. On New Year's Eve of 2021, he decided to ruin a town tradition and lap the town common with it during the tree lighting ceremony while people were caroling and giving thanks. Summer of last year, me and a friend decided it was time to get revenge, because nobody wanted to do anything about it. My friend's dad owned a junkyard, and they recently got an old train horn from a busted diesel that ended up there. We spent a good week getting it set up in the back of his work truck, and decided to wait on for a little while. A month or so later, we found out he was having a party of some kind with other rich folks in his family. But we didn't know what it was about, so we carefully parked outside his house, on the opposite side of the fence. Right as it was starting, we blasted the train horn, and peeled out before anyone knew what happened. News got out later, and we found out the party we bombed was actually a wake for his late grandfather. Oh, well, that turned around real quick. Honestly, I was expecting this story to be about you trying to rig the train horn to his exhaust pipe, I'll be real. You know how people bag up their leaves and leave them out by the street? As a teen, we used to go out at night and dump them back onto the people's lawn. Thinking about it now, I would be so angry if someone did that to me. When I was about 15, a neighbor of ours stopped us in the road and chewed us out for riding our go-karts in the road. This was despite the fact that it was a dirt road in a rural area, which was the perfect place for riding go-karts. He was a complete asshole about it too. I don't know where I got the idea from, but I promptly went home, called the electric company, pretended to be the neighbor, and told them I wanted my electricity turned off as we were moving. It was the 80s, so they just looked at the account up by the name and address, and promptly entered my request into the system. I'm sure it was just a minor inconvenience for them, but they really deserved it in my opinion. Sometimes you can do really screwed up things without any intent or awareness. I was young and with a very nice woman who was struggling with some physical issues that resulted in a severe depression. We weren't living together, but I was regularly getting up early and going over to her place for breakfast, and to kind of just check in and let her know I was there for her. I went drinking with some friends one night, and I overslept the next morning. I called her to let her know I wouldn't make it. She committed unaliving that day before I got back from work. I know now what happened wasn't my fault, and I wasn't responsible, at least not in some overt way. We all make our decisions. Still, I will always wish I hadn't been careless and overslept that day. If I had the chance to change one decision I've made in my life, this would be it. Now we got a story from the narrator. Now, I was just a little kid, not even in my double digits yet. I was at a restaurant, a nice old diner, when I lived in New Jersey. I don't live in New Jersey anymore, but they used to have really good restaurants. Our waitress went up, and she was talking to us with a big, wide smile, asking us what we wanted. I saw her teeth were yellow, and as a little kid, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Like, oh my god, yellow teeth, how'd you get them colored? And I'm like, wow, how'd you get your teeth colored? And my grandmother, oh, I embarrassed her so bad with that one. And that lady looked so bad and had somebody else cover our table for the rest of that night. Nowadays, I feel so bad for that one. Like, I basically just called her out and not brushing her teeth. Oh no. Anyway, on to the next story. The day before I stopped drinking alcohol altogether, I was in a really dark place for a number of reasons, and I was absolutely using alcohol as a crutch. One of the reasons why I was in such a bad place emotionally was because my cousin was in decline due to... That's a condition I can't read or pronounce. I was actively seeing this person that I loved dearly lose his sense of self and ability to understand conversations and situations. And he was young, he just turned 50. There was a lot of light in the beginning, but considering that I can't pronounce that for the life of me, is effectively a stageless brain cancer, it was almost guaranteed he would lose the battle. The day I stopped drinking altogether was the day I was supposed to drive him to a research institute for his monthly treatment and check-in. It was the only time I asked to take on that level of responsibility, as his wife would normally take him. I helped in a bunch of different ways, like hanging out with him when he'd be otherwise alone. But this appointment was pretty big. I depressedly drank myself into a stupor the night before and missed our meet-up time. I said I'd be there no matter what, and I wasn't. The appointment happened, and he reassured me everything was okay, as he knew the battle was over anyway. But I will never forgive myself for that. Even typing this out makes me feel like the biggest piece of crap. I wish I were sober then. You made a mistake, and you got sober. Forgive yourself, friend.
You're all disgusting. Anyways, I made the Pringles can a fleshlight once.
Not the most screwed up. The roommates of my girlfriend were making her life very difficult, leaving garbage rotting in her room while on vacation, piercing our rubbers and more. I used to pee on their bath sponges and never told them. My 12-year-old dumbass thought after watching videos on YouTube that applying honey to your eyes directly can lighten its color naturally. Boy, that was painful. I stopped doing it after a week. One time, a girl I had minimal interest in, but had mutually shared friends with, sent me a text basically saying, I have feelings for you and I'd like to explore where that takes us. I then typed up a message to my good friend saying, please kill me now, I think she wants a relationship. Keep in mind, the girl was nice and all, but she wasn't my type. I'm also a people pleaser, so the thought of having to turn someone down makes me uncomfortable, and I dreaded having to tell her I wasn't interested. I've been turned down before, it sucks. I don't want to have to do that to someone else. I did not mean the please kill me now as a knock on her as a person, but I don't want to be in this situation. You can already guess what happened though. I sent the please kill me now text to the girl, after immediately realizing what I did and thinking for about 30 seconds how I possibly talk my way out of this, and not sounding like the biggest jerk in the entire world. I realized there was no good way to spin that. I decided to just try my best to explain to her that it wasn't meant to be mean and blah blah blah. I also said she didn't deserve that, blah blah blah. It didn't matter. I still cringe about it to this day. That's the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed the stories I had for you. If you did, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment with your stories or thoughts on the stories I provided. Now, I will see you all next time. Hasta la pasta.